Remember this. And one of my favorite quotes from Warren Buffett is very simple. And he said, I will take a fool with a plan over a genius with no plan any day of the week, right? Now, what is the lesson to be learned there? You have to have a plan if you're going to get where you want to go, okay? And here's the thing. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. So you have to know what your goal is. So let's talk about this. What is your goal for the rest of the year, folks? Is it another 50,000? Is it another 100,000? Is it another 200,000? Type that in the chat, all right? You got to make these things real, guys, because once you make it real, then you can figure out a plan to solve that. You with me? Okay. If you say, okay, well, I want to make another $100,000. That's 6 more months. Okay. That's about 17,000 per month. I need to figure out a way to make $17,000 per month for the rest of the year. Make sense, guys? Okay. So go ahead and put that in the chat. I'd like to see what your goals are for the remainder of the year. All right. So in the meantime, let's get rocking. All right. So super duper important, folks. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see the 5-step plan to finish off 2024? You see that okay? Yeah? All right, cool. Thanks, Ricky. All right. So folks, here's what you need to do. And I alluded to it just a second ago. We need to break down our goals. What does that look like? If you don't know if most people, 90% of people have an annual goal, okay? So on your piece of paper there, write down your annual goal, okay? If you don't know what your annual goal is, take your hand out, smack it, and then write down what an annual goal is now, okay? Because again, like I mentioned before, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. But if you know where you're going, we can devise a map on exactly how to get there, okay? You'll know as you go along the journey, whether you're ahead of time, on time, or behind, okay? And what adjustments you need to make, okay? So I want you to take that number that you just wrote down as your plan, as your goal, your annual goal, okay? And now I want you to divide that into quarters, okay? What does that look like quarterly? So let's say that for easy math, your goal for the year is 200,000. Your quarterly goal is going to be 50,000. All right, folks? Okay. Now, once we have our quarterly goal, I want you to divide that up into 3. Okay, because there's 3 months in a quarter. So go ahead and take whatever your quarterly goal is, divide that up and make it monthly. Okay. In the sense of a 50,000. So if your annual goal is 200, and then your quarterly goal is going to be 50,000. Your monthly goal would then be what? 16,666, right? All right, guys? Okay. And then you need to take that monthly goal and you divide it into weekly. Okay. Take whatever that number is, divide it by 4. If you want to make $50,000 for this quarter, you're going to have to bring in about a little over 4K per week. All right. Most people do not have their goals dialed in like this, okay? Next week, we're going to show you in our live training, okay, exactly what it takes for you to be able to hit these goals, exactly how much behavior you need to how much action you need to take in order to hit these goals. But number one, I want you to figure out what your goal is, okay? Anybody, type an exclamation point in the chat if you were a little bit surprised, okay? When you actually broke down your number, you say, oh, wow, that's an awful lot, okay? Good. If your goal is a little bit outside your reach, good, because that's the way it should be, all right? If you're comfortable with your goal isn't high enough, and you're obviously capable of making more. Okay. Step 2 along this journey, folks, is you need to create a killer morning routine. Now, here's the thing. What most people do, let me tell you about a little story about the average agent. What most agents, the average ones, they wake up whatever time, maybe they were watching Netflix late last night, and maybe they set an alarm, maybe they didn't set an alarm, maybe they got to get their kids to school, that sort of thing. Maybe they made planned their day ahead of time. Maybe they didn't. Okay. But they roll out of bed and, they're running late because, gosh, that Real Housewives of wherever, Omaha is really a great addictive show. And they get to work. They're driving to work. They're rushing. They're eating their breakfast on the road. They get there. They're a little bit flustered. Half of the office is already there because they're all dedicated to getting there at a certain time. Right. and they have a million things going on and they don't have a plan for the day. That's what an average agent would do. Okay. Roll out of bed and figure it out, open up their inbox. And guys, it's okay, because I've been there before. Okay. Type the word inbox if you let your inbox be the guide for your day. Okay. Because remember this, I want you guys to understand this. When you have a routine, when you have a plan, okay, the closer you stick to that plan, the more successful you're going to be. Now, let's talk about plans, okay? When you are following your inbox, are you working off your plan or somebody else's plan? Type that in the chat, guys. If you're working off your inbox, are you working off your plan or somebody else's plan or agenda? Might be a better way of looking at it. Okay, type that in the chat. What do you think that is, guys? What do you think, Laura? What do you think, Mariki? Billy? Right? Colin? Zena? What do you think that is? Exactly. Yes, somebody else's plan. Okay, so doesn't it make sense that if you work off your own plan, that you will tend to have more control of your day? You're going to tend to have more control of your business. Because remember, folks, we only have two things to sell as agents. Number one is our time, and number two is our knowledge, okay? You cannot be your most effective version of yourself if you are running off somebody else's agenda. Does that make sense, guys? Type a 100 if that makes 100% sense, okay? Billy says, I've calendared my productive time each day. Love it. Good. That's awesome. And we're going to get to what the most productive activities are in just a second. So glad you brought that up, okay? So let's talk about the people that have a routine and why it's more likely to make them more productive. Those people wake up at the same time every day, okay? Maybe you practice self-care. Maybe it's, you go to the gym. Maybe, you read the newspaper. Maybe you meditate. Maybe you journal, all these things, okay? You fuel up. Folks, do not skip breakfast, okay? We want you in the same physiological state every single day when you get to the office, okay? Now, folks, if you never listen to another word I ever say, okay, I'm about to drop on you, okay, advice that I got from one of the wealthiest people that I've ever had the pleasure to work with, okay? I asked this one guy, very, very successful investor, okay? He made a ton of money in real estate. I said to him, what is the one biggest contributor to your success? And he said, Chris, it's very, very simple. You have to show up at the office at the same time every single day. Period. End of story. Folks, you want to 2x your business? I guarantee you, if you showed up at your office at the very same time every day for the next 180 days, you will not recognize your business. Why? Because if you show up the same time, you're probably going to be showing up in the same state, because in order for you to be consistent and repeatable, you have to be doing it at the same time. Because think about it, the people that roll out of bed, didn't get enough sleep, maybe they got enough sleep, maybe they're, they had to take their dogs, whatever, right? The problem with real estate agents is the thing that we're all guilty of, okay, is we don't have a boss standing over us, like whipping us with a ruler on our knuckles if we're there 5 minutes late, okay? It's incumbent upon us to maintain the discipline, and so many people do not, okay? Type a 1 in the chat if you see people just floating in and out of the office that never come in at the same time, okay? All right? Type a 2 in the chat if you notice that the people that are the most consistent and make the most money, you see them with a very, very consistent, repeatable a routine, okay? Folks, this stuff doesn't happen on accident, okay? Michael Jordan was one of the best ever. Why? He had a ridiculous work ethic. Kobe Bryant, okay? He outworked everybody. It's not a secret. Elon Musk talks about, you want to be the best? Outwork everybody. It's very, very simple, okay? So, and finally, the most important thing I can tell all of you next to arriving at the office at the same time every day, start prospecting before 8:30 a.m. Can anybody tell me why? Type in the chat. Take a guess why I say before 8:30 a.m. Guess why that's important, folks. Okay. Billy says you're best in the morning. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Yeah. Okay. What else? Right. So think about it. We're sharper in the morning. Okay. Yeah, good one, Ponce. Yeah. You catch people in the AM. Folks, Just as your day gets busy around 10, turn 30, 11, right? Eve says you beat everyone to it, 100%. Good, good. Folks, what it comes down to is you're catching that business person before their day has gotten too hectic, before their hair is on fire, dealing with employees or dealing with vendors or dealing with the shipment that didn't come or the truck or the blah, 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 blah. You with me, guys? Okay. Just like you have crazy lives, so do they. So I call that 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock slot of your day the calm before the storm. Okay. Type an exclamation point in the chat if you notice by 10:30, that's when the clients start making their calls to you. That's when stuff starts popping off. That's when the attorney calls you and says, hey, this thing's falling apart. That's when the other agent starts calling you and says, hey, guess what? They have a problem with this, that, the other thing, blah, blah, blah. You ever notice that? Okay. You get very, very few of those calls between 8 and 10 a.m. Okay. Everybody needs to understand, use that calm before the storm time to your benefit. Folks, if you are not, you are flushing money down the toilet. Plain and simple. I can't put it in plainer English. Does that make sense, guys? Everybody type 100 in the chat. That makes a whole lot of sense. Knowing what we know, use it to your advantage, okay? You need every single advantage you can take. So please, please, please use that 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock window of time, because guess what? Nobody else is doing it, okay? Let me give you a couple hints, right? We've all talked about, you've heard on the news and stuff like that, 1% earners, this. A lot of politicians like to throw that out there, right? Somehow it's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing if you're in the top 1% of all earners in the country, all right? It means you're making over $428,000 a year. Tell me why that's bad, okay? Right? Point is, okay, and that number might have increased. That was from CNN.com a couple years ago. But the point is, right, there's a couple lessons that I learned on my way to becoming a 1% earner. And it's very, very simple. Number one, you have to be willing to do what other people are not doing. 99% of people are not getting to the office every day and getting their prospecting done before 10 a.m. Okay? I guarantee you. You know why? I speak to thousands of agents a year. There's 12,000 agents in this group here, folks, okay? I have well over 1,000 calls a year, and I guarantee you 99% of them are not doing the very things that are on the screen right here. I don't have to give you a silver bullet. You just have to do the basics, and that's what 99% of them are not doing. That's number one. And number two, if you want to earn what 99% of people don't earn, you have to do what 99% of them are not doing, okay? So you got to be willing to go further than 99% of people, and you have to be doing what 99% of people are not doing. Type a 99 in the chat. That makes sense, guys, if you want to become a 1% earner, okay? It sounds so simple, but nobody does it. You know how many people do it? 1% of people, okay? 1% of people do this. And that there's a reason why 90% of the money in commercial is made by 10% of the agents. Okay. Yep. There we go. Okay, cool. So let's go on to step number 3. Okay. So please write these down, folks. If you wrote these down and started implementing them tomorrow, by Christmas time, you'll have a very, very, frankly, you'll have a very, very different business. Here's what it comes down to. All right, folks. Cool. So next up, dun, dun, dun. All right. You need to be able to understand the most important activities, okay? Write this down, folks, all right? It's been said many times by many people, okay? If you don't have an assistant, you are one. If you don't have an assistant, you are one. Or if you want to write it in first person, if I don't have an assistant, I am one. Folks, my business tripled in a 2-year period when I brought on an assistant. You know why? It allowed me to do the most important activities. Okay? So think about it, folks. The 3 most important activities in any brokerage, okay, when you're going after, in our case, we teach people how to take commercial listings, okay? If you're on the wrong call, you can go ahead and hit the little red button, but I'm pretty sure you guys are here for the right reason. Okay. So remember, you need to be doing these 3 things more than anything. You need to be prospecting. You need to be presenting, and you need to be following up. Those are the most important. Okay. Not putting, listings on the MLS, CoStar, Prexy, whatever. Okay. Not creating a new flyer, not, like shuffling, the papers on your desk. Okay. Right. Avoidant behavior is what most people do. Everybody knows, or if not, they're really lost, but everybody knows that these are the most important activities, but very few people prioritize these activities. Do you know where the word priority comes from, folks? It comes from the word prior, which means you do these before everything else. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, type an exclamation point in the chat. That's a light bulb for you, all right? Because I want you guys to understand, once you start identifying the most important activities, then you start saying, how can I delegate the rest? How can I take the things that are not important and delegate those out so that I don't have to do them? Okay. We're going to do a quick little exercise right now, folks. All right. I want you to do me a favor. Remember that number that I had you write down, your annual goal? Okay. I want you to pull out your calculators on your smartphone or whatever. All right. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take that number and divide it by 2,000. Okay. And put that in the chat. And I'm going to explain to you in just a second what that number means. So take your annual goal, your annual earnings, okay? Type it, write it down, divide it by 2,000, okay? And then put that number into the chat. Okay, cool. So Billy's is 160, S. Dockery's is 250. Good, 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 good. Ricky's 50. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, folks, what this means, this is your hourly rate. Okay, what's 2,000? That's 40 hours a week for 50 weeks of the year. That's 2,000 work hours. You're going to take your annual income that you desire, divide by 2,000 work hours. Okay, all right. So, Ponce, as an example, right? Ponce, do you think? Can you hop on the mic for a second, buddy? All right.
Yeah, I'm here.
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Ponce, I have a quick question for you, pal. Do you think that you could pay somebody something less than $250 to put a property on the MLS for you?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Do you think you could pay someone something less than $100 an hour to do that?
Way less.
Okay. Maybe 10 or 15 bucks if they're domestic. If they're overseas, more like $4 or $5. You with me?
I was just going to say my virtual assistant gets it done pretty cheap. Residential.
Yep.
Now, this commercial thing is what we need help with.
Yep.
But yes.
But that's the point. That's the point. You're already taking advantage of other people, of utilizing other people for leverage, right? And that's what I wanted to bring up. So Ponce is already on the trail. He's already on the right path, right? What he recognizes is I can trade my money for somebody else's time. Folks, I get over 30 hours of productivity a day done. You probably might say, how, what, right? Because I do about 10 hours. Then I have two full-time admins or two full-time VAs. And then I have another admin and dialing for me, right? I get like, what's that? 16, 20. Yeah, I get about 30 hours of productivity a day. Not bad, guys. Okay. So my point that I want you guys all to understand is you need to scribe out, like draw out every single activity you need in your business. Okay. Typically, most businesses, there's about 12 to 15. Every activity you do. And then I just want you to green light, red light. Green light is only I can do it. Nobody else can do it. And red light is anything that you can teach to somebody else. Okay. Right. And once you start delegating those things, that's when you do. Then guess what happens? When you start paying someone, let's just say it's $8 an hour for 4 hours. Okay. When you start paying somebody $32 a day, okay, for 4 hours, guys, type in the chat what 4 hours of your day is worth. Okay. So for instance, for Ponce, it'll be 4 times the number that he put in the chat. Right. For Mariki, for S. Docker. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So Billy, would you trade $32 for $640? Right? Does that seem like a fair trade? Yeah, right? That's a 20x trade. You with me, guys? So the point is, you can literally buy back your time so you can do more of the right things. So you know what winds up happening, guys? You don't wind up doing 2x, right? You wind up doing 4x or 6x because not only do you have half of your day back, but you're now putting it to the things that are the most important. Okay, guys? Type 5x in the chat if that makes a whole lot of sense, guys. Not only are you doing less of the lower value tasks, but you're now doing more of the higher value tasks. Okay. Right. Cool. 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 And here's a little tip for you guys, right? Write out everything on a piece of paper, right? I like to draw like a little flow chart, like a box, then a box, then a box, then a box, and then connect them like an old school board game. Okay. And then all you have to do is write out about an 8 to 10 step instruction sheet for those things. And it's very, very simple. And it's the best use of your time ever. You can probably do it in about an hour to an hour and a half. You can document your entire business and then teach it to somebody else. Okay. You guys see the value in that, guys? All right. So you have to be doing the most important activities, and the fastest way to stop doing the things that aren't worth your time, right? It's to delegate as much as you need to. All right. Cool. So step 4, plan your day the night before. Okay. So guys, we're going to go over a red car theory. All right. Has anyone ever heard of red car theory? Okay. Do me a favor and type in the chat how many red cars you saw while driving on your way to the office or driving wherever you drove today. Type it in the chat. And if you don't know, type a question mark. All right, Estockery, you cheated because you already know the answer to this one. But if you don't know how many red cars you saw today, type a question mark in the chat. Like, I don't know, right? Okay, cool. And that's fine. All right. The point is, folks, if I told you guys, all right, that you were going to be paid $1,000 for every red car that you saw, okay, do you think you'd remember every single one of them? Right? Okay, exactly. You would remember every single one. Now, what's the difference? All I did was draw your attention to red cars. So you're probably saying, like, what does this have to do with commercial brokerage? I'm getting there. Okay. What it comes down to, your brain's a supercomputer. It's undisputed. The jury's already come back and made the decision, right? So, but what most of us don't realize is we have this part of our brain that connects dots for us. It does it automatically without us even knowing. Okay. Have you guys ever noticed, like, I remember I went to go buy a Honda, right, one time, and I came back from test driving the car at the dealership, and on my way home, every third car was a Honda. I was like, look at that. There's one. Look at that. There's one. Right. That's the first time I noticed it was then. I was like a teenager at the time. But the most important lesson I learned was, now that I know how the brain works, now we're going to use it to our advantage. Okay. That's step number 4. All right. When you plan your day the night before, what it allows you to do, it allows that supercomputer between your ears to start doing the work for you while you sleep. Okay. So what does that look like? Write your to-do list. Guys, I got my to-do list right here. Okay. This is everything I have to do between now and tomorrow, right? Or between now and end of business tomorrow. Why? Because I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to have insights in terms of that list, in terms of my to-do list. Number 1, I'll have dumped everything out of my brain and I'll put it onto a piece of paper or a digital board, okay, which allows you, number 1, to clear your mind. But most importantly, okay, you're going to have a plan the second you walk into the office in the morning. Excuse me. Just like I mentioned in step 2, that you have to have a really good morning routine. When you get to the office in the same physiological state at the same time, and you have your plan, and while you were sleeping, your brain was working on it, do you think you're going to have a 10x advantage on the competition who's just rolling in there like bleary-eyed with a cup of coffee because they stayed up too late? Guys, type 10x if you think you're going to have an unfair advantage on all your competition. Okay. So I highly, highly advise, folks, plan your day the night before. We don't know what's going to happen in the morning. We don't know if your dog's going to, have an accident and you're going to be somehow pulled out or out of your mindset. But what you can do is you can plan the night before. Most of the time, the last like 20 minutes of the day is a little bit quiet. Do your planning and have it ready so that's the first thing you see on your desk. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. Now, step 5, okay, track your numbers like a scientist. I heard a great quote when it comes to numbers. I love data. I always tell people, like, when I'm in a listening presentation, I'll say, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, other brokers might come in here and they might tell you some stories, right? But the numbers will never lie to you. Okay. And then I start introducing the data. Now, the most important thing I want you guys to understand is trust God. Everybody else better bring data. You with me, guys? All right. So I want you to understand you need to track numbers so you can see trends. How many of you guys have ever had a good day? Show of hands. Okay, so have I. How many of you guys have ever had a bad day? So have I. How many of you has the same stimulus? Okay, some days you're like, nah, what's a big deal? And the other days you're like, oh, I can't believe it. It's just my luck. Blah 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 blah. Guess what? We're human beings. We have emotions. Some are higher and lower than others. Okay, but the point is, with numbers, when you track the actual data, okay, 1 + 1 will always equal 2. Sometimes we have good days, guys. Sometimes our dog pukes on the lawn. Sorry, right? Sometimes you get into a fight with your spouse. Sometimes you get a letter from the bank or the IRS, whatever the case may be. Sometimes that deal falls apart, and you were really counting on it, and it puts you in a bad mood. You can't control what happens to you, but what you can control is how you deal with it. The best way to deal with it, guys, is to track your activities using numbers. Okay. So track numbers to make sure you're making the right choices for your business. Folks, if you're not following your data of your business, okay, any changes you make is just guesswork, guys. Okay. And you work way too hard in this business to just guess at what's going to make it better. If you just track your numbers, it'll take you about 60 seconds a day. And then you do that over a week, a month, a quarter, a year, a couple of years, you're going to know exactly what's going on in your business. You'll be able to look at what was going on last quarter compared to this quarter. You'll be able to go, instead of like the market just feels different. No, maybe you just had a bad week. Maybe it's the week after 4th of July. Maybe it's the week after some holiday, whatever the case may be. You with me, guys? Does that make sense? Type of 1 in the chat. Okay. You have to track your numbers like a scientist. You guys want a little cheat sheet? Track how many dials you make on a daily basis, how many people pick up the phone, how many meetings you set, and how many listings you take. Very simple. You need to track 4 numbers. That'll take you about 30 to 60 seconds a day. All right, guys? Cool. Now, finally, guys, I'm going to be very mindful that we're just at the bottom of the hour. Okay? Bonus step number 6. If you haven't already, okay, get a mentor that has a system. Okay, remember, folks, people fail, systems succeed, and people fail to the level of their systems. Okay, if you don't have a system, what did I say? What did I start the call with today, folks, right? Warren Buffett saying, I'll take a fool with a plan over a genius with no plan any day. Okay, a system is nothing more than a plan, a procedure of how you operate your business. Okay, one thing I want you to remember, I'm sure everybody here on January 1st said, this is my year. I'm going to 2X. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Okay. Right. But did you change anything you were doing from last year? Okay. What is that thing? Okay. And I quote this all the time. You'll hear me say it time after time after time. What's that thing that Albert Einstein's quoted as saying? He said that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Folks, what is that the definition of? Type that in the chat, please. Doing the same thing over and over and over and somehow expecting different results, right? Exactly. Yes, Ponce, that is insanity, okay? Folks, it would be insane to think that what you are doing, somehow or another, you're going to get a different result by just doing the same thing over and over again. But let's take that and turn it around. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting more or less the same result. What is that called, folks? The word is on the screen, okay? Folks, that's called a system, okay? I promise you, an idiot with a system will outwork you every single day. They'll outperform you. Why? Because when you have a system, write this down, folks. This is I just came up with this at breakfast about 3 weeks ago, okay? System, what it means, SYSTEM, save yourself time, energy, and money, okay? That's what a system allows you to do. Great to see you all. I will see you next week. We'll talk to you soon, guys. See ya.